Hello, I'm Mantastic and Fantastic, and today I'm going to talk about the two brand new 7-star Godfest exclusives of Norza and Aljae. So these two new Godfest exclusives have debuted today during a special Super Godfest that features the standard 33% or 1 out of 3 chance to roll any Godfest exclusive. Now, while this is the base level that we base Godfest off of nowadays, it does feature two incredibly strong, new, and powerful transforming cards, which are at the height of their relative power creep. And for the most part, it may sound a little common sense, but cards are at their strongest most of the time when they are initially released. And this is because in order to make higher rarity cards appealing enough for people to chase and roll, they have to be strong enough to do so. And in the case of Norza and Aljae here, it actually works. So there is some merits to rolling in this Godfest because you can acquire them at the peak of their power. But before we just commit to anything, let's take a look at each of these cards in greater detail to better understand why they are so strong. So with Norza in her base form, she actually comes with a skill bind resist, which is huge because you can team build much more easily. You don't have to worry about getting skill bound, which often is a case for Yugi teams that rely heavily on Fortress Dragons. But after you have 18 skill boosts or effective skill boosts, you can then transform into a tremendously powerful card that has exceptionally high attack, quite high health, and that beautifully complements her 777 combo and VDP. She also comes with a cloud resist, but perhaps the biggest selling point is her unbelievably overtuned active skill. And this is because transforming cards as a whole tend to be stronger compared to non-transforming cards. And this is because in order for to justify the skill boost requirements, which oftentimes may lead to less ideal team compositions, they have to be strong enough to make up for that. And in the case of Norza, she definitely does, because if you look at her active skill, you get one turn of 1.5 times orb movement time, 1.5 times recovery, and then creating 3 water and 3 hard orbs on a 2-turn cooldown. This should be like many turns. Like, this is an absurdly overtuned active skill. It's just doing so much. And this 2-turn is important and also at the same time kind of her crutch, because as a leader she is phenomenally strong, but she must use an active skill every single turn. And because it's a 2-turn cooldown, you need to have a second card or solution to pop an active every turn. Furthermore, you do want to match hearts and water, but more importantly, you want to match ideally 5 hearts to get Norza's full damage reduction. A single heart combo when paired with Gung-Ho Yomi will result in some damage reduction, just not as much. So you need to be aware that a lot of your survivability is tied to being able to match hard orbs. If you cannot match hard orbs, well, you're only have 2 times health, because paired with Yomi, you only have 2 times health, and the damage reduction is over 50%, which in turn is basically 2 times more effective health. But the point is, if you can't match enough hard orbs, you won't be able to get the damage reduction, and besides, if you don't have enough hard orbs, you probably didn't use an active skill. So there are a lot of things going against her from a team building point of view. If you can build a team for her, she's incredibly strong, but that is going to be her largest hurdle, because her ideal team, so to speak, would include a Norza sub and a Norza leader, which is 2 transforming cards, which means it can be possibly a little bit difficult to hit 18 skill boosts. And again, rolling Norza might be challenging. You have to roll her. You can't monster exchange for her. If you could, it'd be much easier to create a team, because you then solve basically all of your damage output needs, along with countering RCV and time debuffs, as well as having orb generation needs to always activate every single turn. So looking at these leader pairings, you have the 2 times health, you have 280 times attack, which is reasonably high, and also it's even further boosted by the fact that you have incredibly hard-hitting 7 combo cards. But you also have 5 times RCV. But remember, you have 1.5 times RCV with 2 Norzas every single turn. So it's really 7.5 times RCV, which is more than enough. You can out-heal basically everything. And that's why Norza's stats are so well tuned, because her RCV is low, but it's basically 7.5 times higher than what you see here. So it's not as terrible, and any other card with even modest amounts of RCV will be pumping in great value. So in terms of the activation requirements, you must have an active skill used every single turn. And for Gung-Ho Yomi, when you do match water and heal orbs, that's when you trigger your full damage with 7 or more combos, and you get 500,000 auto follow-up attack damage and the damage reduction. So remember, 3 hard orbs with water is damage reduction from Yomi. Getting 5 hard orbs is damage reduction for Norza. But if you do get 5 hard orbs, Norza will give you the damage reduction, which was promised, but you also get +3 combos. So now you're going to be hitting big combos with relative ease as long as you have enough Heart Orbs. And the fun fact is, for Yomi, matching 5 Heart Orbs doesn't actually increase your damage multiplier outside of getting combo count. Your full multiplier is actually achieved for using an active skill. It's just Yomi that wants to have hearts and water match for damage amplification, but you need the hearts for damage reduction. So you can kind of see why 2 Norzas are kind of the ideal setup. So while that is appealing, if you don't have your own Norza, it's going to be a little bit more awkward to build a competent team, because in theory, you could trade for Gung Ho Yomi, but you can't trade for Norza. So if you don't have a Norza, the next best option would be using Evolved Yuri, who has a 2-turn cooldown, which is what we need. We need 1 to 2 turn cooldown in order to kind of create its own system loop. And while Norza's active is infinitely stronger, Yuri's still at least produces 2 Heart Orbs, so at least you can get some damage reduction most likely, and you lock future Heart Orbs for 2 turns. So you'll always have your Heart Orbs locked so they don't get taken away, which means it does provide a soft pseudo counter to spinners, but also prevents enemy skills that actively take away your Heart Orbs from not being as lethal. Fortunately, you could actually exchange for her if you actually held onto your token like I suggested a month or 2 ago when she first came out. I made the strong recommendation that you should hold on to these just in case something comes along that you could utilize them, and that is going to be the case for myself if I hadn't rolled Yuri at some point in the past and I rolled Norza. The point of the matter is, if you held onto your token and you want to play with Norza, Yuri is going to be a good solution. In addition to that, you can use obviously other 1 to 2 turn cooldown cards, and a card that I feel like is quite long forgotten is Claymore, because Claymore now comes with a super blind resist, 2 skill boosts, and her active skill will overwrite any attack debuff. So between Claymore and Norza, you have counters to RCV, time, and attack debuffing, with 50% of the time making orbs. It's not a bad compromise by any means, and super blind resist will in turn possibly free up other sub slots. You can definitely use Lutina, who is a 1-turn cooldown, which will give you a water skyfall buff, but at the same time, it's not going to actively help with orb generation, so you still could utilize Lutina, but not be able to fully activate because you don't actually have water or heart orbs present on the board. Still a solution, but not as clean. For Rimur, it's a, what's it called? It's a orb skin card that some people may have purchased or may have lucked out in rolling. She has a 2-turn cooldown, but she doesn't really contribute to any orb generation, but her kind of saving grace is 3 skill boosts, which again can alleviate team building constraints. And I'm also quite well aware that Dina is a powerful 1-turn cooldown card, but unfortunately she doesn't work in this team because she has the chance to randomly overwrite Heart Orbs with her 3 Water Orbs that are generated. And that can be a huge problem because you suddenly use the active skill, but then you broke your own activation. It's nowhere near as efficient. It technically works, but it's not an ideal solution, despite Dina being such a powerful card. So, once you have solved this active skill clause issue, you need to start populating your team. And you need 18 skill boosts to transform, but assuming you're using Yomi, Gung Ho Yomi as the asymmetrical pairing, you have 18 minus 4 or 14 skill boosts to transform between 3 subs or 4 if you're using a non-Norza. So between 3 or 4 subs along with 6 inherits, you should be able to come up to this magical number of 14 or find other tricks to basically survive if you want to tank a hit or 2 on the very first floor. So some good subs that come to mind, this is not an exhaustive list, but is Blue Odin. Because Blue Odin in this form here has 4 skill boosts along with Super Blind, 5 Water Rose, and Tape Resist. Quite a well jam-packed card with a reasonably short 6-turn cooldown, which allows you to inherit something on top that you might only use once, probably once throughout the dungeon, maybe twice. Lamp is another strong 4 effective skill boost solution with his 2 turns of delay, and once transformed gives you Super Poison Resist. Again, cards that bring Super Resist I love because it greatly frees up your inheritance slots and it just makes it easier to team build. Furthermore, Lamp's active provides a 3-time attack buff and a full Awoken Bind clear, which are both meaningful, especially towards the end of Altarina 4, where you could say get Odin Dragon, get Awoken Bound, and you have that attack debuff. You can clear both of those with a single active, and you can just smash right through. Another option, again, that is 4 skill boosts, is Pixel's Sharius, who gives you the 4 skill boosts, Super Blind, and 2 turns of damage absorption Void, which is kind of important when you consider that there's no way to counter absorption spawns otherwise, so this could be your solution. And the only thing to be aware of when using these for 3 subs is that none of them have Skillbind Resist. But thankfully, Norza does have a Skillbind Resist in her base form, so this only becomes an issue if you actually utilize 2 of these 3 cards as subs. Then you must find a way to get an extra Skillbind Resist, because otherwise you might run that off chance of the 20% failing and you're being screwed over. Evolved Kaiba also comes with 4 skill boosts. I found a bunch of 4 skill boost cards, but he has super poison resist and high personal damage against non-void spawns. Again, I like super resist with skill boost. It's just a nice way to bring a sub all together. And in all honesty, you should try and make a habit of utilizing Illumina.com and their fuzzy search function to basically kind of filter in parameters to find subs that you might have overlooked. It's what I personally use to find and look up cards when trying to team build, because it's just efficient and much faster than trying to do it in game. Another interesting and possibly unique way to gain more effective skill boosts on your team is if you don't have a second Norza and you're utilizing another non-transforming card for their 1 to 2 turn cooldown, and you can inherit the farmable gung-ho Palig machine Helen, the Tragic Princess, because Helen's weapon assist provides you with a 2-turn delay along with some orb enhance and attack well above 80% for the owning card. So you give passive damage to your cards and essentially 2 more effective skill boosts, assuming you were not running something like Lamp, who already provided a delay. The point is, you could utilize that on top of your other low cooldown card, because this is only a 12-turn cooldown total, and then you can gain extra effective skill boosts, which in turn will make you transform. Doing this only works for non-Norzas as your active skill solutions, because Norza will need to have 18 turns to transform anyway, so it would never get to touch its delay. So basically, in summary, Gung-Ho Yomi paired with Norza is able to create a phenomenally strong team that, for the most part, naturally counters most of the dangerous mechanics in current endgame content and makes them incredibly strong and stable, but at the same time difficult to team build, mostly because of the fact that you need a second Norza. In terms of Norza's weapon assist, it provides 5 enhanced water orbs, which is sizable passive damage, but unfortunately, I feel like it has an incredibly high opportunity cost because, as mentioned, you want to use Norza's because she's so strong already. And this weapon assist is actually not that magical when I really think about it. Yes, you do have sizable amounts of orb enhances for passive damage, but the active skill is only a bicolor board changer of hearts with +2 combo count. It's nice, but at the same time, is it going to change your life? Probably not, because it's not actually providing any counters to dangerous mechanics. It's really just a board changer with water hearts, +2 combos, and passive damage. It's not going to actively help you remove unable to match orb statuses, those sort of things. It's just not quite as strong, and again, I'd rather keep Norza in her other form. In regards to the new Aljae, in her base form, she also has Skillbind Resist, so again, in turn, that makes it easier to team build. And once transformed, she has Natural Tape Resist, but 4 7 combos, which translates into 16 times personal damage. That's a scary amount considering the fact that this activates from any 7 combo match against any spawn. So she is essentially a tremendous damage solution for her own team, and it definitely can help alleviate some team building constraints, so to speak, because when you think about it, one card is able to largely carry a good brunt of the weight, and she can equip favorable killers such as God Killers. In terms of her post-transform active skill, she gets 1 turn of Void, Damage Void, and changing the whole board to all 5 colors. So that's an incredibly fast Void, Damage Void, which is a problem for rainbow-based teams. It's just an awkward mechanic for them to overcome without an active skill. You could use the VDP latent, but for exceptionally tanky spawns, it may not be enough for that one card to deal. You might need the whole team to contribute damage to actually pierce through. So having access to a fast 5-turn active skill is tremendously valuable. In addition to that, her leader skill caps out at 20 times attack for a single leader, as well as 50% damage reduction when you match any 5 orbs in an L shape. That's a huge amount of damage reduction. And while you do have to match 4 or more colors, those 4 or more colors are compensated by the fact that you have 1 million auto follow-up attack damage, which is enough to execute the latent Tamadras or a 10 in 2 turns. if playing through Arena 4 or Arena 6. It's just a clean and seamless way to counter them without having to really worry or stress too much. So this again gives her an extra added level of zest, but 50% damage reduction is meaningful because that's 2 times effective health, but at the same time protects you from 100% gravities, because 100% gravities now no longer will execute you because they will be reduced in their damage. So that makes a sizable difference. In addition to that, her leader skill has no typing nor color restrictions, so she can asymmetrically pair with basically anyone you want, and if you're pairing with someone who doesn't transform, they're going to bring skill boosts, which in turn can make it easier to hit those 18 skill boost threshold. But when you really think about it, the fact that you can use any sub means you can use any skill boost solution you want. So team building is quite flexible, and it's only quote-unquote more restricted depending on who you pair with if they have certain color preferences or typings. But the point of the matter is she has flexibility. So I think this is going to help bring another great face to the Rainbow team scene, because it's just a powerful leader skill with high damage reduction that is easy to achieve, along with the Void damage void on a much faster cooldown compared to other options, and a board changer alongside of it. So even if you can't make use of the Void damage void, you have a board changer which could possibly save you because you can activate from there. In terms of asymmetrical pairings, you can pair with base Manoa because both of them need 4 colors, and for Manoa you want to match 5 orbs in an L shape, which is the same active leader skill requirement for Aljae. Like, it's the same thing, so it's just easy to do. You're not changing your playstyle in any way, but you also have a way to always counter spinner orbs. She does provide some skill boost, and it just provides a little bit of diversity to your team, so to speak. If you choose to pair Valentine's Ideal or Shinji, those also give wonderful benefits and perks along with their own respective team building restrictions. But the point of the matter is you have quite a few different options, and as mentioned before, because you already have strong damage from one of your leaders, you can definitely focus more on like utility heavy cards, and Pollen is definitely going to be a valuable addition to the team, I feel, because it provides you with the damage absorption counter and color absorption counter, which can definitely be a problem for Rainbow teams, because when spawns absorb 2 colors, it's gonna be probably kind of awkward to actually not match those colors because you need to for activation requirements. So having a color absorb on your team somewhere does make a difference, especially in Arena 4 where Yomi Dragon is a problem as well. In terms of her weapon assist, it does provide 5 enhanced wood orbs and a long active skill, which in turn is nice because it doesn't accidentally charge up. And if it does charge up, it provides a rainbow board with a void damage void for 3 turns, so a useful active skill at the same time. But the problem is, like Norza, it's a high opportunity cost. She is one of the strongest leaders in the game, and if you only owned a single copy, you're basically saying, I'm not going to use you. And I feel like the weapon assist, while it does provide meaningful amounts of passive damage for your team, it's not, I feel, justification enough to give up such a strong leader. But with that being said, for most transforming cards that only have like a transformed form and a weapon assist, if you have duplicates, unless you're Norza, it's unlikely you're going to need that many duplicates, because it's hard to actually run multiple copies on a single team. So if you do manage to run 2 of her, I would convert 1 to a weapon assist, because I don't really foresee it being as feasible to run 2 transforming cards, because you might be giving up other team building or other utility that may not be as desirable. So, to roll or not to roll. This current Super Godfest does feature the standard 1 out of 3 or 33% chance to roll any Godfest exclusive, and that is basically the bottom. Furthermore, there are no seasonal cards sprinkled in to add a little bit of extra appeal, and we always have the promise of future events being stronger. And I feel like this is actually a continuous problem for the North American server, because we're around 2 months behind the JP server, and because of that, we always now can see, because we have lots of people who are actively aiding in translation, so information is readily available, and because of that, we know what's coming out in JP today, which is basically 2 months our future, and the future always looks brighter in gacha style games, because if they don't release new content or better things over time, it doesn't have to be in huge leaps and bounds, but a slow, steady increase. But if they don't, people are not going to have any motivation to roll, possibly continue playing, so they have to always make it a little bit better. And I feel like this has kind of created a somewhat of a sense of rolling creep, so to speak, because these future events in JP are always going to look better compared to what's currently available, because they're always going to get better slowly over time. It might go up and down and dip, but the end result is you're going to be a bit higher several months down the road, and you might be continuously stuck in this pattern of thinking, well, it's going to be better the next Godfest. But by the time that next Godfest rolls around, something even better has come out in JP, and they're like, oh, I must save for that. And you never end up rolling. And it's just an awkward thing to be in. So sometimes you almost have to kind of bite the bullet and say, well, this is a good enough Godfest. It features things that I want to roll. And you have to also consider, you can acquire potentially these two cards at the peak of their power, which is important because you can start clearing content with them today. You could roll these in a month or so, but in a month or so, they may not be the top thing. There might be something a little spicier, but at the same time, they can clear all the content currently available right now. And unless Arena 7 is going to be truly unkind and obnoxious and new types of mechanics, I don't feel like these leaders are going to be power crept too hard, at least for quite a while. And at the same time, Alt Arena 4 is an incredibly difficult dungeon, and I feel like only a relatively small amount of the player base has cleared it. So even if Arena 7 does eventually come out, there's still going to be many people trying to clear Alt Arena 4, and Norza and Aljae are tremendously strong solutions for that dungeon. So with that in mind, I do actually plan on rolling a modest amount around 4 p.m. PST on my Twitch stream, because I actually have quite a shallow monster box when it comes to higher rarity cards, and I also don't have the best options for playing through Alt Arena 4. My best team is Nell and Yugi, which does have some problems. It can work, but it is a little cumbersome, and it's definitely much slower. So, in conclusion, Norza and Aljae are incredibly strong transforming cards that debut in this Super Godfest. And while this Super Godfest doesn't feature outstandingly better rates or like seasonal sprinkled in, we are able to acquire 2 new cards at the height of their power creep power, so to speak, which in turn is meaningful. And I don't really think they're going to be pushed out super fast either, even though cards do kind of get cycled out relatively quickly because Gunko loves to pump out new cards every couple of weeks. Regardless of all that, let me know what you think about these 2 new Godfest exclusives in the comments down below. Do you plan on rolling? And if you do plan on rolling, who did you manage to roll? Either way, hopefully all the Mantastic day. I wish you all the best in your own pad adventures. Join me around 4 p.m. PST on my Twitch stream for rolling, and happy puzzling.